Imagine standing at the edge of a vast, sweeping landscape. For early settlers, these lands were often described as empty, a blank canvas ripe for expansion. But this powerful myth of emptiness hid a profound truth. It obscured the existence of thriving indigenous societies, whose complex social and ecological systems had flourished here for thousands of years. The relentless drive for resource extraction, gold, timber, fertile soil didn't just fuel economic growth. It unleashed a wave of environmental degradation and cultural displacement. For indigenous communities, land was never a commodity to be bought or sold. It was an interconnected web of life, a sacred space where all living beings coexisted. Their entire philosophy was built on seasonal stewardship and a deep spiritual connection to the land. Contrast this with the extractive mindset of frontier developers, and you uncover a fundamental paradox. What was called development often meant destruction. How could societies so perfectly attuned to the rhythms of nature be dismissed as untamed, while unchecked expansion was celebrated as progress? This clash of worldviews set the stage for centuries of ecological and cultural consequences. As we explore this history, let's consider a question. How might our modern approach to progress change if we truly honored knowledge that predates our technology by millennia? The environmental cost of this expansion is literally written across the landscapes of history. Vast, ancient forests were clear-cut for timber. Rivers that had flowed freely for eons were dammed to power mills and irrigation, disrupting entire ecosystems. Soil depletion became commonplace as monoculture farming, planting the same crop year after year, replaced traditional land rotation practices that kept the earth fertile. Indigenous stewardship, in stark contrast, had maintained incredible biodiversity. They used careful, selective harvesting, conducted seasonal burns to clear underbrush and encourage new growth, and designated sacred spaces where nature could thrive undisturbed. Once these practices were ignored, or in many cases outlawed, the dominoes began to fall. Habitats collapsed, species disappeared, and the very foundation of ecological balance eroded. In many ways, the roots of our modern climate crisis can be traced back to these early policies of extraction. They established a dangerous precedent for environmental degradation that continues to this day. When we look at historical maps of deforestation, river diversions, and urban sprawl, we see a haunting pattern. Every shortcut taken for short-term profit created a long-term ecological debt we are still paying. The echoes of these choices reverberate through time, challenging us to ask, what might we reclaim if we had listened to the voices of those who understood the land so intimately? But indigenous communities were not passive observers of this destruction. They were active guardians of the land, with a deep well of scientific and practical knowledge. Their controlled burns, for example, were a sophisticated tool for managing forest density and stimulating new, healthy growth. Polyculture farming, or planting diverse crops together, created resilient systems that naturally resisted pests and disease. They maintained sacred groves, which were essentially nature preserves that protected biodiversity hotspots. When encroachment threatened these life-sustaining systems, resistance took many forms. It involved diplomacy and negotiation, but also the brave defense of their ancestral territories. And today, these very practices are experiencing a powerful resurgence. All around the world, indigenous-led conservation projects are proving that this traditional knowledge can restore degraded ecosystems, protect endangered species, and even help mitigate the devastating effects of climate change. These stories are not just historical footnotes. They present actionable, proven strategies for modern environmental management. By understanding and integrating traditional ecological knowledge, our societies can finally begin to reconcile technological advancement with ecological responsibility. The question was never whether these ancient practices worked. The evidence shows they did. The real question is whether modern society is finally willing to listen and learn from them. The history of frontier development reveals a tension that still defines our world today. The pursuit of economic growth often comes at the direct expense of social and environmental health. Beyond the staggering ecological cost, indigenous cultures were systematically suppressed. Their languages, ceremonies, and entire systems of knowledge were disrupted or actively destroyed in the name of progress. Yet, this isn't a simple story of good versus evil or a binary opposition. The real paradox lies in the possibility that progress and sustainability are not inherently incompatible. The lessons of history are clear. When development ignores local wisdom and prioritizes short-term gain over long-term well-being, the result is cultural loss, environmental collapse, and a profound moral cost. Understanding this paradox forces us to critically examine our contemporary development models. Can we decouple economic growth from exploitation? Is it possible for modern technology to complement, rather than completely override, ancient wisdom? This tension remains incredibly relevant. It guides discussions from urban planning to global climate policy, and it reminds us that ignoring the lessons of history is often a far more costly path than we can possibly anticipate. So, where do we go from here? The solutions for our intertwined environmental and social crises may lie in bridging the old with the new. Integrating traditional ecological knowledge with modern science offers a powerful pathway toward regenerative practices, truly sustainable economies, and large-scale ecological restoration. Indigenous principles that emphasize circularity, reciprocity, and a deep respect for natural systems can inspire new economic models that prioritize the long-term well-being of people and planet over immediate extractive profit. Advocating for land sovereignty, supporting indigenous-led conservation efforts, and making a genuine effort to learn from ancestral wisdom are not just ethical imperatives. They are practical, necessary strategies for sustaining life on this planet. The echoes of the Untamed are not a lament for a lost past. They are a call to action for our future. They remind us that progress is most meaningful when it honors the knowledge embedded in the land and the people who have stewarded it for generations. As we face an uncertain ecological future, the message is clear. We must listen, we must learn, and we must act to ensure that development finally becomes a force for restoration, not destruction. If you found this journey through history, ecology, and indigenous wisdom enlightening, subscribe to Western Taily's Official for more stories that challenge what we think we know about progress and survival. Hit the bell to stay updated and join a community that values knowledge, truth, and the echoes of the Untamed.